for joining me. Morgan Irons, Jennifer Sey, of course. We've got a power lifter. We've got two female athletes, power lifter, former national gymnast champion. Of course, the controversy, I think, about a week ago now was that a male won a women's power, not just a women's powerlifting competition, but the one that deems people the world's strongest woman, whether that's just because that's the organization's name or it's a, a determination of that fact. I'm not entirely sure, having not participated myself, but maybe I will in a different competition soon. And of course, it was won by a biological male, as we say. And controversy happened so quickly in that event, Morgan. How long did it take for you to catch wind of that after it happened? Did people start sending it to you? Were you tracking that competition already? Let me know how you got informed of that.
So I was already watching the competition. I've competed a lot with many of those women beforehand already. And I have not competed with the person at hand, Jamie Booker, before, but I have spoken to them before. So I was kind of aware of what was going on. And I want to say, obviously, the competition ended Sunday evening, and there was already wind of conversation happening later that night, and I was kind of in the know of what was going on. A lot of things were getting told between each other as competitors, coaches, etc. And by Monday morning, it was pretty darn sure concrete that what we had found out was true. So.
And is this one of those situations where people sign up like blindly online, or is there a testing process at all, or how could the organizers not be aware of this?
So, okay, it's called Official Strongman Games, OSG for short is what we call it. And there are qualifiers both here in the States and internationally. For the United States, there are regional competitions. There's one in the Southwest, Midwest. I think there's two others. I'm not really familiar. From the Midwest, so that's where I qualified. There's also an online qualifier that encompasses everyone from all over the world that can compete, and then top 10 are invited from each weight class in division. So we have teens, masters, open weight, which is anyone for women, anyone over 182 pounds. For men, it's over 231. And then there's subdivisions as well for weight classes as well.
So you had mentioned that you'd come across Jamie, as I'm not sure if that's his real name, unisex name,
The
but
name that we were given.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned you'd come across him before. Was this sort of the situation where it's something that's obvious and everybody doesn't say anything about it? Was it assumed that him being believing he's a woman was allowed in these competitions? What was the feeling like around him at these other events?
Yeah, I would say strong woman, strong man, whatever both there we call it strong man, but there obviously women compete as well. We call it strong women. But there are such a giant array of makeups of what women look like in our sport. We have girls who are 100 and I think 13 pounds up to 400 pounds almost. And so we have a lot of different builds, height differences, sizes, muscle mass. Some are leaner, some are heavier set, like myself. It really the difference, there's such a difference. And then I would say that there were some people questioning quite a bit early on. I have to say I was one of them.
Hmm.
I have been following Jamie for at least a year and been in contact with them. And I just had some lingering questions and doubt. I know women are very strong and can be very muscular. And so it had nothing to do with that. It's just there's some telltale signs of a biological man that kind of gave it away for me.
Now, Jennifer, you have a lot of experience speaking with young women, especially in college, who have gone up against males in their sports, volleyball being a big one, track and field, I think, is another one. Is their story about how it feels? I don't want to use word vibe, guys. I hear it too much. I hear the word vibe too much. What was the vibe like? But what's consistent across stories you hear from young women in terms of the feeling around it, where it's like, you sort of know, but nobody can be
Yeah.
100% sure?
Yeah. I mean, just like Morgan said, there are women who can have more masculine characteristics. They can be very strong, but it's still clear they're women. Have I been wrong? Maybe sometimes, sure. Um, 9.5 times out of 10, I think we all know, as human beings, we are equipped with this ability. It's not just women who know, men know too. We know
Mm-hmm.
when there is a man in our midst. And I thought you were going to ask me a different question, which I'm going to answer, which is how does it feel for these women? And I will tell you, I talked to high school girls across the country, middle school girls across the country, the West Virginia shot putters who walked away from competing against a boy, college girls, Olympic athletes. It feels like the world is telling you you don't matter. That's what it feels like, because you're told you don't. You're told what he wants matters more than your rights as a girl or a woman. He wants this. What's the difference? Just be nice. Just be nice. What's the difference? This is what he wants. And then if a woman dares to speak up for herself, and I'm sure Morgan can attest to this, Andrea can probably attest to it. She's told to be quiet. So for the last however many decades, we are trying to raise our daughters. I have a daughter, she's 9. We're trying to raise our girls, our young women, to stand up for themselves, to use their voices, to do what's right. And in this particular instance, they're told to sit down, be quiet, you're a racist and a bigot. I mean, you and I think, chatted about this. Look at what happened to Elizabeth Eddy, the only professional women's soccer player to actually stand up and say women's professional soccer should be for women only, the only one willing to do that. 2 days later, her own teammates, the captain of the team, held a press conference to call her a racist and a bigot. Like, this is what happens to women, and we're doing it to girls. And adults are just cowards. They won't stand up with these young girls. I mean, these young girls are going to save the day. I'm just telling you right now. They are heroic and they're fearless and they're doing it anyway because they know it's right. So, but I think you just know. I don't know what else to say. Like, when it's a man. It's not just the physique. It's the stubble. It's the Adam's apple. It's the voice. It's the receding hairline. You don't have a receding hairline, but often they do. Like, you just know. It's the gait. It's the gait. It's the shape of their legs. It's not having hips. It's like all these things add up, and it's not right. And so I think human beings were equipped to know and understand. Babies can tell men versus women. This is what we're built to understand. And so had he competed in men's before? That's what I wasn't sure of.
I am not aware of that. Like I said, all of us were told from when we started talking to Jamie that we had no recollection that she was anything but a woman because she had never said anything otherwise.
Right.
So it's just kind of one of those good faith kind of things where
Well,
you
yeah.
just
And I think
and that's what happened at OSG is what happened
right.
is because
And
they don't take identification, sadly. And that's what I want to
right.
talk about later.
Yeah, I do too, because there's no ID, let alone testing for sex, which is really what needs to happen. Because in the United States, I don't know if you know this, but you can change your ID in 44 states.
Yes.
And when you change it, it's not marked changed. So
No.
your birth certificate would just say female.
Mm-hmm.
So, our point of view at XXXY is you have to test for sex, which is this totally non-invasive test where you just spit in a cup. You do it once, when you compete in a league, and then it's done and the record is there. It's really the only way to guarantee that women's sports are for women only. It's really the only way.
And I've been having chats about that with some of the different competitors and athletes. And I'm saying, because the first thing everyone goes to is, oh my gosh, are they going to start doing checks of our genital checks? And I'm like, okay, that's a very far out idea. Like there's many steps we can hit before that.
That would be more accurate. Yeah.
Exactly. And it seems like that I looked up because I've been digging into it as well. It looks like it's not a very expensive test. I looked for anywhere from $200 to $300. And I see that a lot of the different organizations cover part of the cost and then the rest comes from the athlete. And I know with strongman, that's something strong women that we can easily do.
Sure.
Yeah. So from what I was able to research, he had competed in several other competitions, whether those were precursors to that. I don't think all of them were. There was a podcast that I'm able to bring up here where very ironic that let me just play the first 20 seconds. If it will work now. Which I don't know if it will. So right at the beginning, he said, this host says, it's great to finally have a woman on the program. We've been having too many men on the program lately. And then they cite him as a recent winner of a different competition. So I was just going to mention that. And I was also going to mention the person who was later strong this woman named strongest
Yeah.
woman, Andrea Thompson, she had mentioned in a subsequent post here that other people had been facing it's actually this one, other women had been facing backlash because of this story. And Jennifer, you mentioned, hate messages, of course, coming across. Morgan, were you getting,
Uh,
messages of discontent after you posted your video, which will just flash across the screen here? The Iron Maiden 97, great screen name, by the way,
Thank you.
on that one. Were you getting messages after you posted this video?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of support, I have to say. I would say the support is unanimously the majority of what I'm getting, but there was some negative feedback as well. I think one of my favorites was, "Have you ever considered driving yourself off a cliff?"
Yeah.
Jeez.
Just some
No.
really outlandish stuff, and it was just coming in left and right, and I was like, "Wow." I personally don't think my message was hateful at all. I didn't say anything negative towards the trans community. I just pointed out that as a woman, I don't want to compete with biological men, and I don't think that my other women should have to, or my daughter, or her friends, or anyone for that matter. I don't compete against men.
I
I don't
had
go to their
wondered,
class.
I had wondered if you had um received or spoken up about this before, because you went out of your way to say, I don't have any ill will towards this group of people. I don't have anything else to say about transgender people, like basically a neutral position. And I'd wondered
Mhm.
if this had been your first foray into this, because if it hadn't been, then maybe you would have seen that it doesn't matter what you preface it with.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
matter how friendly you are, the attacks are going
Yeah.
to come. It doesn't matter. So is this the first time you sort of got political air quotes for audio listeners?
I would say it's my first time being fully involved. It's not my first time being political by any means. I've actually have been told by multiple people to kind of step back on my political posting on my Instagram to get sponsors to be interested and to be able to have the opportunities that I want within the sport to reach the stages that I want to reach, which is very difficult for me because I'm personally one of those people that what you see online is who I am.
Hmm.
And I want to be that authentic person that I am online and in person as well. And so when they mean something to me, I want people to know that. And so, yeah, I would say this is my first time definitely being involved, though, for sure.
Well, we can sponsor you, and we would be proud to sponsor
Thank
you
you.
and
Oh,
have you
I
wow.
say
appreciate
whatever
that.
you want. So we'll talk after the show.
Yes, I appreciate that. That sounds great.
Really, I'm just a matchmaker. I'm a connection maker. I've told
I'm
people that
wearing
I
their shirt
know.
today.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Oh,
I have
that is. You got the
Yep.
package already. Oh, good.
Yes. Super,
Nice.
super, super quality
subliminal
clothing, guys.
messaging.
Thank you.
I have told people that I know that they need to think about being more authentic, because it's going to eventually come out how you really are. Somebody's going to have a text message, a phone call, somebody's
Oh
going to
yeah.
sneak a video about you. And I'm thinking of one person in particular who I'll stare at through the camera. If you're going to talk to people in a certain way, and then when you come on the camera and you're just like, actually, I'm the nicest person in the world, then people are going to find that out. And also it's more difficult to sort of play a persona. So I think that's something that certainly everybody on screen right now can relate to, of just being yourself and dealing with the blowback, no matter how it comes. I believe Jennifer has many stories about genes related to that. So
I thought you were going to say that I was nicer in public than I am when I talk to you privately. But
she sends me hate messages. Sometimes I haven't spoken to her for months, and she'll just
I,
send me the middle finger, stuff like that. That happens
I
all the
just
time.
I
I
just
love
want
friends
to
like
add,
that.
yeah, I just want to add, I think you raise a good point, Andrew, which I think sometimes almost everyone I know that kind of starts on this journey of challenging, not just males competing in women's sports, but all the entire ideology, you sort of feel like, well, if I say it the right way, and if I use the pronouns, and if I do this, and I can be the bridge builder, and then you're right. There's nothing you can say that won't get, I mean, I get, those same kind of threats every day. I get the craziest stuff you would not believe. I'm going to kill all your employees. I'm going to murder your children, like all of this stuff. And then you realize the rot at the core of this ideology. And most people, almost everyone, becomes more direct and forceful in their language. There are two sexes. There are men and there are women. Men can never become women. Stay out of
Mhm.
our sports and spaces. This is a rotten ideology to the core. That's not a criticism of you at all, Morgan. I mean, I think we've watched it
Yeah.
sort of in real time with Tish Hyman, the woman who encountered a male in the locker room at Gold's Gym in Los Angeles. We've been watching her get more forceful in her language in real time because you just see the rot at the center of all of this and the misogyny, frankly. Like, think of this guy, Jamie, or whatever his real name is, the gall to enter a competition for women to be the strongest woman in the world as a dude. Like, the arrogance and the dismissiveness of actual women required to do that, it's just disgusting. It's gross. And so, some of us may have been nicer publicly in the past when we started on this journey, but I mean, I don't think it's mean to say there's two sexes and Jamie, you're a man. That's not mean, that's factual. So,
Yeah.
but of course the community, the gender people say it's mean.
Morgan, have you what was I going to ask? What Jennifer and I have discussed on here a couple times what we thought the root reasons have been for the men that are doing this. And if we are to believe that there isn't any sort of, issue mentally involved, what do you think is the reason a man would get up and be like, I'm going to be the strongest woman?
That's a good question. I've actually spent quite a bit of time thinking about what is or what was Jamie's, agenda, Obviously the sport itself is very fun and very interesting to do and it's a good challenge, but I can't help but wonder, this is kind of my rabbit hole I went down. Recently there has been a strongman competition or strongwoman competition, men and women. It's called the Rogue Invitational and it's held in Aberdeen, Ireland and or Scotland, my bad. And the prize pot for that for the men and the women is over $110,000,
Wow.
and that's not something that is normal in our sport at all, especially for the
Right.
women's side. And it seems kind of odd that Jamie came around as soon as that started happening, and I don't know if that's why, but I know there was a comment that Jamie made to another athlete. I can't remember exactly who it was, but Jamie said that I want to become famous from this, like get a
Yeah.
following, etc. So that way I can raise money and then move out of the United States to another country. And I just, I don't know, I just feel like strongman was kind of used by Jamie and in a way. And I know we all have our different reasons for doing sports, and I shouldn't say that my reason's better than someone else's per se, but I guess if it's sad if you don't have the true love for the sport at the end of the day.
I think a part of it, Andrew, I have to say, this is me, like, being completely peaked, as they say in this movement, is the humiliation of the women. That's part of it.
Yeah.
It's a complete, it needs to be pathologized. And part of it is, if you really respected women, you would recognize the reality of the situation, that you are obviously stronger. I'm assuming, Morgan, that he, with what
Mhm.
he lifts and however the competition works, that he can't qualify in men's. I'm assuming he
No,
wouldn't even make the cut in
absolutely not.
men's. Right.
No.
And so part of it is trampling women's rights and saying I'm a better woman than you are, and stealing, and it's like it's the humiliation of women. You have to take this, you have to. And the cool thing is, the organization did the right thing and they said,
Mhm.
no, women don't have to take this. You're a man, you don't get to keep the award. Andrea gets it, she's the strongest woman in the world. So they did the
Yes, for
right
sure.
thing. I hope, I think one of the other things people don't understand is that the sports governance landscape is really complicated. And so, even for sort of more traditional sports, you've got the NCAA and you've got Title IX, which is sort of a law. It is a law, but it's being violated every day. And then you've got the U.S. Olympic Committee and the Olympic movement sports, but they're each governed by the individual sport governing bodies. And then you have the IOC, but then you have all these individual sports and professional leagues, and everyone gets to set their own rules. So there's
Hmm.
no way to wave a magic wand and make this right in every sport and protect the integrity of women's sports. And my firm belief is we have to do it through culture change so that this becomes an unacceptable thing, that these guys get booed out of the place if they dare to step onto a woman's court or a woman's field, or well, I don't know where you guys compete, but like in a
Stages,
women's stadium,
platforms.
a stage, yeah, like
Yeah,
they should be humiliated. That's my feeling.
My what I had mentioned before was that, and I'd like to point out, I reached out to Jamie. I prefer Jamie personally. I reached out, got to give the opportunity to speak and give your side, give your opinion, and no response.
absolutely.
I I've seen that he has now privatized his Instagram page where I messaged him at. The GoFundMe is still up though, of course. But my go to was along the lines, Jennifer, of what you say, the it's sort of the revenge aspect, and what as a man, what I think a man doing this to other women is a revenge. This is hearsay, conjecture, Your Honor. Don't know this to be true, but this is revenge in the sense of I didn't get the attention that I wanted, so now I will go be the girl. I will now go be the pretty girl, and then
Mm.
I will get the attention from the men, and look how I did it. Now I'm popular. Now you can't ignore me. You can't say that I'm unattractive as a man because now I'm the pretty girl. That's how it comes across to me and almost every man I know. And if in absence of that, it is a way to gain notoriety or win something, or you have a mental illness. Those are the three options as I see it. And I do
Or
want to or
combination of all
combination
three.
of many of them. And I do want to talk about the solutions. The official Strongman Games did come out almost immediately after, working in a working day sense, almost immediately after, and say, we didn't know, we're going to correct this. And they ended up giving the other woman, whose name I already forget, which is Andrea Thompson,
Andrew,
the victory. And they even gave her, like a podium ceremony, which was really nice. You could tell
that's
she
cool.
she appreciated that. So in terms of correcting this, now the Olympics have finally said they're going to test for this. We've talked about it before. Even Amane Khalif went through the testing. They just never they never mentioned it. Took 3 or 4 different things to come out about him for that finally to have the nail put in the coffin. So what you're saying is the simple swab test. And Morgan, I want to know from you if you've discussed this with other strong women, any of the competitions. Is there anything that you've heard of being put in motion to start putting these tests in application? Has the strongman competition said anything about that?
So I have talked about it with a lot of competitors and my own coach, and we are all in agreement that seems to be the solution that we need. I mean, it's not invasive, it's a one-time thing, it's not expensive, and it's something that if we can find like a database to put it on, all the organizations can have access to it, one and done, be done with it. And the other thing that I really think would be very helpful for us is identification, not just because of the fact of this transgender issue, but because of the fact that we're not asked for an ID when we compete. We're asked for an ID in just about everything in everyday life.
Yeah,
And so I feel like an ID is not asking too much of an athlete,
yeah.
because what's to stop someone from coming and competing in my place? I mean, I know we're
Mm.
we're in the age of social media, so most people know each other is, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. So it's kind of a two-for situation, in my opinion. Solves two problems.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
has there been any resistance or excuse making or any legitimate arguments as to why that can't happen from the powers that be or the other side?
No, I think Morgan cited the excuses, which I think are super lame and terrible excuses. If we focus on this, there's going to be genital checks, or that it's somehow incredibly invasive to do this test. And I will say, as someone who competed at the highest levels in sport, we were drug tested all the time. I don't know if you guys are, if that's even allowed, but a
I'm
drug
not
test for
personally, no.
a drug,
In
I mean,
news,
Morgan,
no.
you can take as many drugs as you want. And I grew up competing in the era when there was a ton of steroid use in international gymnastics and international sports in the Eastern Bloc countries. I mean, it was in the 80s. And so we were drug tested all the time. You had to pee in a cup in front of a person so that you weren't, using someone else's pee. Like, that was a lot more invasive. I know that they're drug tested at the NCAA level. Some professional sport leagues don't. My understanding is the National Women's Soccer League doesn't even drug test, which I think is insane. So I think there should be drug testing regularly, and I think there should be a one-time test for sex. They don't even have to swab. They can spit in a cup. It protects against all males competing in women's sports, not just trans-identified males, but males like Amani Khalif, who I wouldn't say is trans, but has a disordered sex development. Which is also a huge issue. I mean, that's a huge issue in the Olympic Games. I think there have been over 60 men in the Olympic movement who have won in track and field in the last 20 years, which is why World Athletics took the lead here. And those men are not trans. They're all DSD athletes. That means they have disordered sex development. Some people call them intersex. They're not. They're men. They're just men. But no, they have no good reason. They say it's too invasive. And, I'm sure you saw this, Andrew, but both Amani Khalif and Caster Semenya also dropped his lawsuit against the IOC to be able to compete in the Olympics again. They're all claiming, well, now if we have to test for sex, it's invasive. Of course, these are the only two athletes who are refusing to test for sex. Everyone else is like, okay, it's fine. They spit in the cup and it's over. But the two men are refusing, of course.
It's funny how that happens. And I do want to ask you about steroids and gymnastics and what that looks like. For sure. But first, I want to ask you guys about people like Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, who will do these things. She'll quote tweet Riley Gaines, and I forget what insults she's slinging at her, whatever they were. But to straight up deny all the things, saying that's why you're in second place or something like that. Morgan, let me get your reaction. How does it feel when a woman who's supposed to be she's a woman in politics, she champions herself as for the women and for the people of New York and I think it's Queens, and then she comes up there and she says basically, and this is as they say, an 80-20 issue. So let's just assume 60% of women, being generous, disagree with her on this. She comes out there and she says to at least half of the women in the country, who cares if a man beats you? That just means you're not fast enough, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough. As a woman who is a mother and a competitor, how does that make you feel?
Frustrated and honestly annoyed, because I got comments like that on my video, work harder. You
Mm.
don't even know how hard I work. You don't know how hard all of us women that compete in these sports worked. Andrea Thompson's been doing this, I want to say, a decade. There were other women up on that stage and podium that have been competing in this sport for well over 5, 6, 7 years, some even longer. And to just say work harder. Okay, Jamie came in this sport less than a year ago compared to 10 years of work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a slap in the face. I mean, it's not to say that someone can't come in, on the scene very quickly. There have been athletes that have done that. I'm probably one of them myself. Went from novice to pro within a little over a year. It can
Wow.
happen. It's just not normal, or something that happens every single day. And I was just blessed with opportunities to do so. But the thing is that to say something so ignorant like that is just, I don't even have words really for it, because there's nothing that I can say that's going to get through to someone that truly thinks that way.
There's no, the whole thing is so illogical. It just is going to at some point crumble and crash on itself. I mean, does someone like AOC actually think that a man who just decides he's a woman suddenly loses all that male advantage just because he made this declaration and he said it out loud and he put on like some lip gloss? Like, she really, I mean, honestly, I want to ask her, do you really believe that? Because they would say, well, those are women. But then they have all these like convoluted arguments. Well, they're women. Some women are stronger. Some women are. Let me give you a fact. Every race in the Olympics, so track and field, every race for speed, every year, the woman that wins and is second and is third, there are close to 1,000 males across the country, high school boys, who beat the women's Olympic champion in one country. I mean, come on, AOC. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so stupid. And then they argue with you.
You
Oh,
see
you
it
have
with
faith
our
in
sport too.
women. Yeah, exactly. I was just using speed as, there's speed and there's
Yeah.
strength. It's just, I don't really believe in their hearts that they believe it, but I don't think they can see past their sort of whatever ideology has corrupted their brains. And the fact is, they don't really care about sports. The people that would say this, they don't. They hate sports. Sports are the last bastion of merit. Sports are, DEI proof. You have to be the best. You have to be the fastest or the strongest. That's it. And so I don't think they really care if the best person doesn't win. And I don't think they care if the best woman doesn't get the gold. They don't
They just
care
come back
because
with if you don't like it, don't compete. And that's not the solution.
no.
Why do you even care? It's a good one.
Or they'll say they care about inclusion more than fairness. You know what? Sports aren't about inclusion. I can't do the strongest woman. I'm not strong enough, so I don't get to do it. A high school baseball player doesn't get to play little league. There's weight classes in the sport Morgan described. You have to compete in your weight class. There's all kind of rules. Not everybody gets a medal. Not everybody makes the team. Not everybody makes the national team. So inclusion has never been what sports are about. That's ridiculous. No. That's a corruption of what sports are about in the first place.
Have we ever spoken about the World Rugby Organization did a very in-depth study on the effects of the differences of men and women in sport, besides the most obvious one, because people always say it's not proven, but they did go above and beyond to prove it in terms of who can throw further.
So dumb.
Who can throw farther, who can jump farther, jump higher. And even, I believe it was 3 years of testosterone suppression for a man. They only got upwards of 10% decrease in how they could in their performance level.
Right.
So even in the highest, the most perfect scenario, the perfect storm of, so many jokes I'm just not, because Morgan's new here. There's so many jokes I'm just not going to do that I would have done.
What you're talking about is retained male advantage. That's what they call it, is retain. You cannot eliminate retained male advantage. But the other thing that's
once you've gone through puberty.
And even before, there's some evidence, because the first testosterone kind of hits come in utero. But the other thing that's really insulting about that is women aren't disabled men. I mean, you know what I mean? That sort of suggests that if we disable a man enough, it's okay for him to compete with. You get my drift, though.
Yeah,
right. It suggests, like, if we just hamper these boys enough, if we just disable these men, we can have them compete with women. And it's like, well, no, we're not disabled boys. I mean,
no.
So there's so many things wrong with it. There's a reason women's sport exists. The men's category is open. Anyone can compete there. Wear your dress, compete in men's. If you're not good enough, I'm sorry. Sports aren't about inclusion. You don't make it. You don't get to win $110,000 or whatever the amount.
Yes.
Well, if you saw Sophie Cunningham, the WNBA player, a couple of weeks ago, one of the NBA players, I forget which one it was, he said he's sick of hearing the conversation. He knew he was going to get in trouble too, because one of the WNBA players said they could beat a guy in the NBA one-on-one, and he wasn't even like 13th player on the roster. He's averages more than 10 points a game, so just no chance. And so he came out and said that he had actually, when he was in high school, his older sisters played in college, so they brought him on the practice squad to play against these college women, and a bunch of them ended up making the WNBA. And the co-host of Sophie Cunningham's podcast, which is a guy who is very questionable, I would say, in his demeanor, he asked her, like, is this true? Do you think this could actually happen? Could a 14-year-old boy beat a professional women's basketball player? And she's like, yeah, they could. Yes. Like, if they're one of the top players, maybe not just some random kid, but once they start to hit 14, they can already dunk, so they're already going to start dominating them. And it was very refreshing to hear. I don't think you would hear that even maybe a year ago. I'm waiting for her to be forced to apologize the way Caitlin Clark has been forced to apologize, but maybe she's not big enough influence. But I think there are people coming around, and I had asked you recently that I guess I had said that I thought that we were closer to it being solved than it is, and you informed me that there is still. It was in regards to this story. There is still work to be done, and I want to ask you, what is a sign we can take, or what is the marker for, maybe being over the hill?
Well, I'm going to use a different example. I was very involved. In fact, I was the first gymnast to speak out about abuse in gymnastics, which you and I think, have talked about.
Hmm.
There's legislation passed in 2017 called the Safe Sport Act, which is intended to protect not just female athletes, although it is more, it happens more often to female athletes. It does happen to males as well, but it's supposed to protect athletes from abuse. That's sexual abuse, physical, emotional. So there's a law. There's a national law in place. Do you think that athletes aren't abused anymore? I mean, a coach was just arrested a few days ago out of one of the most renowned gyms in the country for sexually assaulting two athletes. And it took Safe Sport, the body that's supposed to monitor this and govern it, 7 years to report on their original
Oh my
report.
God.
So my point is, when legislation is a little bit easier than culture change, and it's going to continue happening. So, and in this particular instance, even if we have legislation, we have an executive order. It's not really doing anything. In about half the states in America, you still have boys competing in girls sports. There's 2 Supreme Court cases coming that will kick off this January. That will be a huge deciding point. And then you have all the individual leagues. So you have strongman. I'd never even heard of it. You have National Women's Soccer League. You have the WNBA. Like, every sport has its own governance.
Yeah.
And some of them are so woke, they're just going to keep doing whatever. I'm using woke as shorthand. You know what I mean? They're just going to keep doing it. And there will be lawsuits, and there will be all. So I don't know. I thought the executive order would have had more impact than it has. Literally changed nothing. Nothing.
Morgan, do you have people in your life who disagree with you on this, that give you the why do you? Maybe they don't give you the why do you even care, but give you you need to be inclusive argument or anything like that?
In my circle, no, not really. I would say followers, people that I have competed against with, absolutely, because of the fact that I have competed at so many competitions. But we all come down to it. We do agree that men should not be competing in women's sports, whether that's make another division for them or completely kick them out of the sport, but or make them compete in the men's division as men and then women as women. That is one of the current policies of one of the strongman associations. It's called USS Strongman, here in the United States, and their policy is that biological men compete with the men, biological women compete with women, and then there is, but it's only offered if the promoter wants to put it on.
Gotcha.
From what I've seen in other things, the third category just ends up being a second men's category. I think they did like the New York Marathon with a non-binary category, Boston, and it's just
It
another
kind of becomes
man.
a free for all.
Well, it becomes a category that crappy male athletes or mediocre male athletes win. So Boston Marathon has had an open or non-binary category for the last 3 years, and every year it's a man who didn't qualify in men's and wins, because the qualifying time in the non-binary category is the women's time.
Okay.
And then it splits the prize money. So then you have if you have a men's and women's category and the prize money is 100,000 for each, and then there's a third category that's non-binary, you have 2/3 of the categories being won by men with the same amount of money. It also furthers the lie that there's a third sex, which there isn't.
Yeah, there's actually 94, if you can keep up with that number. I do want to ask you, Jennifer, unless you have more questions for Morgan on this topic, I do want to ask you about what does steroids in gymnastics look like? When the women are 4'11" to 5'2", I assume. What does that manifest with? Just greater strength? Map this out, please.
Yeah, I mean, in the 70s and early 80s, you saw it quite a bit from the Eastern Bloc countries, the East Germans, the Russians. You saw it in swimming. I think that was the most notable. I mean, if you're short, it has the same impact. You're stronger. And gymnastics is a sport that requires tremendous strength. and power. So I'm not going to name any names of gymnasts that, were suspected to be using steroids, but
No
there were
name dropping.
girls who, yeah, there were girls who definitely looked like they might be on steroids.
Like
So they were stronger, they were faster, they had more power, they could do harder tricks. That's what we call them, the gymnastics tricks. They could do harder stuff, just like they could swim faster. I mean, some of these girls are really incredibly muscular anyway. Look at Simone Biles. She's so strong. That's why she's so dominant in the sport. Um, but yeah, it was certainly a thing. I mean, it was a thing that women, not just in gymnastics, but women in the Olympic movement, not really in the US as much, but in the Eastern Bloc countries, were using steroids, being given steroids by the government to win.
bigger budget for razors, I think, probably too. Morgan, I want to ask you if there is a problem with this in women's powerlifting.
So, in strongman, there's in powerlifting as well. There is tested divisions, so to speak,
Mm.
and then there's also untested as well.
Um,
And generally, with strong women, it's mostly untested. That's just the general consensus here in the United States and in other countries is it's untested. But right now, there is a natural federation that is growing.
mm.
Natural strongman, and they are growing quite a bit. And a friend of mine, she just competed at the world championships and she won, and she has won in the untested as well. So that's really cool to see.
Wow.
And so I'm just yeah, it's definitely it just proves that you don't have to take steroids to be great. And I just think that's a personal preference for anyone to that they wanna do, because if you wanna take those, you have to realize that there's gonna be consequences, possibly health consequences for that.
Yeah.
And so that's something that you have to make that personal choice on. It's kind of like how I feel about vaccines. Like, you
Yeah.
make that personal choice, but do not force it on me, please.
It's interesting because male advantage is greater than performance enhancing drug advantage, in the women's category. So just being male has a greater advantage than if a female athlete takes steroids. But it's interesting if they allow that in the untested games. I guess there's an argument to be made that then they'd allow men to compete. I don't know. You know
But
what
I
I'm
want
saying?
Uh-oh,
It's
cutting
like
out here.
just the Wild West.
she's cutting out for a second there. I wanted to ask her, Morgan, should we be is the deepening weird voice a sign we should be looking out for? Is that consistent across the women using steroids? You know the
Hold on a
voice.
second. Mine's cutting out for me.
Oh,
Uh-oh. Oh no.
we can hear you.
Uh-oh. That's crazy. Okay, what was the question?
The
Sorry.
question is, are the women with the deepening weird voices the ones on steroids?
No, I don't think I don't I don't know. I don't know how I want to answer this. I would say that everyone has a natural their voices are different. I don't know how to explain it. And I have met women that are on gear that actually have very feminine voices.
Okay.
And then I've met women that are not on gear that have very naturally lower toned, whatever you want to call it, voices. I
What
would
do
say
you
there's a
call it?
difference.
Gear?
I don't gear
What do
is
you
what they
call?
call it.
Oh,
Gear, steroids,
never heard that.
supplements, whatever you want to call it.
Got it.
Um, yeah. And so, and then I think that the other issue with the steroids is that in other countries, it is totally legal. The United States,
Mhm.
obviously, it is not, but in other countries, they're not looked at as a illegal substance at all,
Hmm.
I'm going
which
to
is
throw
interesting.
Uzbekistan out there. Probably allows it. Um,
I bet
what is
Russia does.
what is the hardest event in the strongman strong woman competitions? I'm of the creed of man
Ooh.
who on Saturday afternoons watch these things. I would think it's the giant stone ball.
So for me, yes, that is my Achilles heel, I would say. I am a shorter athlete and I don't have as long legs and arms. in the open class, a lot of the women are 6 foot plus. I would say 5'10" to 6'2" is an average range for the class. I'm 5'5.5" on a good day. And so I definitely have a height disadvantage, but I don't let that become an excuse for me, obviously. And I just work with what I have, what God gave me. And that's definitely my hardest one. But I'd have to say the one that I see a lot of women struggle with overall is actually overhead press, because of the fact that it's a lot of upper body. And just looking at biology and science, women tend to be stronger in the trunks and leg area compared to upper body. So it's not as common to have someone who's a really good overhead presser. Or if there is someone who's a good overhead presser, they may not be as strong at the deadlift or squats. And it kind of goes back and forth like that. So
Jennifer,
to
from
find
what you,
someone
oh
who's all
sorry,
around good is hard. Sorry.
no, it's okay. Jennifer, from what you've seen, what has been the most consistent sport that women have been facing competition from men in? Can you
Mm.
can you quantify that or put a percentage on it?
I think it depends where you're looking. I think in the Olympic movement, it's been track and field, and there have been all these DSD athletes, what I described before, that have almost been recruited, many of them from the global south, to compete in women's track and field. I mean, over 60 in the last 2 decades at the Olympic level. Like, that's insane.
That's a
Because
lot.
So I think
they stopped testing what in '99, right?
that's right. That's right. So I think you see it there. I think we're seeing it in track and field and volleyball probably the most. I mean, in volleyball, there's such a height advantage that men have. I mean, and the game is different in women's. The net's lower. The whole game is different. The rules are different. The equipment's different. Um, so that's where I'm seeing it the most. I mean, I think part of it is the volleyball thing just was center stage because of Blair Fleming and San Jose State University. And we had all the teams stand down and boycott. So it was really in the news. I think at the high school level, though, it's like happening everywhere in almost every sport. We hear the most about volleyball and track and field, though. I think that's where we're seeing it the most.
It
Yeah, I
reminds
saw a story of a girl who got a concussion and because some a volleyball
Peyton.
player spiked it to her face and it hit so
Yeah.
hard.
mm, that
Yeah.
was
That's
what
Peyton McNabb.
Peyton
Oh my
McNabb,
gosh.
right? And she got a concussion and some sort of minor brain injury, if I'm not
Not
mistaken.
not that minor. I mean, I know
No,
Peyton pretty well. Not super minor. She had a brain bleed, partial
okay, well
paralysis
then,
on one side of her face and arm. She was really her main sport was softball, and she would have gone on to play in college, but she can't. She has memory issues. She's a great person. There's also I'm sure you saw the pitcher in Minnesota, high school pitcher.
mm-hmm.
He's like 6'2". He just pitched like a gazillion shutouts
What
last
was his
year.
name? I don't remember, but it just so happened that they went undefeated, and
Yeah,
the I know the semifinals he hit like like four RBIs or something, complete game. It's like it was like
it's
the most like
shutout.
obvious dominant performances.
Roethlisberger or
Right,
something. I
right.
can't remember his name either.
Rothenberger,
So
no,
there's
no relation to Ben Roethlisberger, the football player. um, and I'm sure you've seen, if you haven't, to the both of you, that they are bringing back the battle of the sexes in tennis. So I wanted
I
to get
saw.
your opinion on if you think that's a good idea. I believe it's the world number one, or she was very recently,
Yeah,
versus
Sabalenka. It's
Sabalenka
Sabalenka.
versus the Greek guy whose name Kyriakos Papadopoulos, John Stamos. Um, but do you think this is a good idea, or do you think it's going to be, cruel?
What's his ranking? Do you know the male
He's been
ranking?
gone for a while. I can quickly look that up if you tell me your
I mean, she's
feelings.
gonna lose, and she's a player that is like she's a player that she's tall. I think Sabalenka is like 6 feet tall, which is tall for a woman. Definitely straight up power player versus Chrissy Everett type. She will lose. I mean, there was didn't the Williams sisters lose to
Th-
what was
They
his name?
they
To
lost to a guy who was,
Carson, ranked in the 200s.
and he beat them both back to the back with a cigarette break in between.
Yeah, he was ranked in the 200s, maybe lower in men's, and he beat them both. You also have the case of the Women's World Cup soccer team back in 2015 being beaten by a team of high school boys in Texas
There's a
at a
ton of
scrimmage.
these.
Yeah,
That's FC Dallas's academy.
Yes,
There was
that's
the
the one.
Australian
Yep.
boys, and then women's hockey versus the teenage boys happens a lot up here in Canada.
Yeah.
It's about
Oh,
the
right.
13. You got something to say about Canada?
No, there's a lot of
Yeah.
hockey there.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of
I thought
hockey.
so. Yeah, but usually
There's
it's the
a
the 13
there's
year
a
old boys usually.
there's a team here in America, an ice hockey team. Girls ice hockey is taking off here, and there's a team that has, I think, half the roster is boys.
Yes, that's the Minnesota Women's
Right?
Hockey League, where there's a team with 3 guys on it, and you know what? Turns out they were good somehow. I'm not sure how that ends up
How'd that
happening.
happen?
Nick Kyrgios, 3-time Grand Slam winner,
Yes, she's gonna get crushed.
Ariana Sabalenka.
But this is
He
a
was former
PR
number
move.
13. It was his
Yeah,
highest rank.
but is he old now? Is he like 70?
No, I think he's only like 40.
Well, when Bobby Riggs played Billie Jean King, he was old in the set. You guys are too young for that, but that was in the early 70s. Well,
I have to
I
agree
think
with you. It's a PR thing for sure.
it's not like a real competition, it's a PR thing.
He is only 30 years old.
Mm.
So I think he's controversial for some reason, which is why he hasn't been playing a lot lately. I think
Who isn't anymore?
he's sassy, you might say. And
Sounds
I love when tennis, because what things I hate about tennis and golf is the you can't speak if you're in the crowd. And
Yeah, I think
recently
it's
there was
dumb.
a tennis event where the crowd was unhappy with a call, and it was a Russian player pumping up the crowd, and they would not stop booing for like 10 minutes straight. Even when the player who got them to be riled up asked them to stop, they would not stop, and they just refused to play. It's ridiculous. Like, you can't deal with crowd noise. I'm like, so I like
gotta
it
get
when the
over
tennis
that.
players are unruly. There's probably not enough booing in gymnastics, Jennifer. If I'm, it's so supportive at the Olympics.
I always thought it's stupid, the whole idea. I mean, people, that's part of the game that you boo and you trash talk, and that's what the fans do. Like the tennis players are so little babies. You know, they
More.
right. In gymnastics, there's a lot of screaming. I wouldn't say booing, but it is very noisy in the arenas. And
Mm.
so gymnasts are very good at blocking out the sound. There's none of this. Like in Wimbledon, you can hear a pin drop when somebody's getting ready to serve. It's not like that. It's very noisy because you also have to remember there's 4 events going at once. So there's always floor music. So like even just there's a lot of chaos in the arena.
Morgan, your sport seems very kumbaya, like the girls are getting along for some reason, or is there a lot of trash talking happening that we don't see?
But trash talk for sure.
Oh, good, good, good.
I was gonna I was gonna get to that actually at some point. That's kind of why I kind of kept tabs on Jamie for a while, is because Jamie had some rosin words for me and some other athletes along the way of, wanting to beat us, like verbally letting it be known that he wanted to beat us. And I was just, that's something that we do once we get to know each other and we've created like a friendship with each other. Then we start trash talking each other because then it's fun and you can build PR off of it. Like some of my friends do that. We do it all the time. Like, okay, I just broke a world record in April for overhead press for the axle, and then a friend of mine beat it 4 months later. And one of the first things I did, well, I congratulated her obviously, but the next thing I did was, don't get too comfortable. I'm coming back for it. And and she loved that. She goes, don't worry, I'm just keeping it warm for you. And there's that kind of banter back and forth, but that's something that's agreed upon by both parties and we're cool with that, compared to Jamie just came in and started trashing a lot of us, and it was
Right.
definitely not appreciated, especially because a lot of us tried to be friendly towards them and tried to give them tips along the way, and kind of like, because Jamie asked me questions along the way about how the atmosphere was like and how to get to the certain level, and I just gave him my view of what I went through and
Right.
how I perceive things. And I just said that, kind of go into it open eyes and be prepared for anything, and just try to stay true to yourself, but there is definitely trash talking.
What did he say to you, or did he, and where and how? Like the
So it's
trash
all been
talk.
over social media. It's all been over social media, through Instagram chats, stuff like that. And obviously now I can't I probably can still message him, but I don't follow him anymore. He doesn't follow me. And so there's no communication there. Especially after the trash talking kind of started. I just kind of distanced myself from the situation because that's not something I want to be involved in. And but basically said along the lines of that they really hoped that I would be at this next competition so that they could beat me and beat all the other top women in the sport currently. And I just find that odd. You're less than a year in, and what do you want to do? You want to go after the women at the top? That doesn't, I mean, that can be a goal that you have. Like, okay, I want to get as good as these women, but to just call out right away, that's just really bold in my eyes.
Well, that just goes along with what Jennifer predicted, I think was the reason um, that
Yeah,
one might do such a thing.
just to beat up on us in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's all this chatter about going out, and he said this about all the women in particular, did it has any, it sounded like you had some sort of, at least, like, working or mentor like relationship beforehand, and did this sort of,
Yeah.
did it sort of get out of control? Did you sort of just being like, I don't know what I'm supporting here, once the trash talking starts and everything? What was it like? Was there a turning point for you?
Well, for me, it was the fact that especially if I've never met you and our interactions are on social media, and I generally just try to be a positive person. And that's what I got initially from Jamie in the beginning was positive. A lot of comments on my videos like, that's amazing. Congrats, good job, stuff like that. But then it quickly just turned really sour. And I realized that, okay, this isn't all adding up to me at all. And I had already had questions myself. I made them known to friends and family around me and some other competitors. And basically, I was told, don't say anything because if you are wrong, you're going to look like an idiot and you're going to look like a bigot, basically, if you are wrong. And then don't cause any waves or issues if you want to get anywhere in the sport. And I just have a hard time with that because I feel like you have to speak up. You just have to. Not even just for yourself, but for the next generation of women. And it gets to the point where we've sat back and we've let this happen for so long. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. It is partly, I'm not saying it's my fault per se, but it is women's fault in a way that we've got let it get to this point.
Jennifer's going to shed a single tear here out of pride, out of being proud of you, very, very soon. When did any
Let's be clear,
women?
it's the men's fault, though. It's the
Yes.
men who are doing it, so it's their fault.
Did any
Yeah.
women go up to him? Has there been any confrontations that we know of?
That I know of, no. We have not. Most of us that were in contact with Jamie before the competition have not heard a single thing from Jamie at all. My sponsor, actually, Iron Ape, also sponsored Jamie as well, and they immediately came out and said that they were dropping Jamie as an athlete instantly. I think even before official strongman games came out and said that. But because I brought it to their attention because I know the owner of Iron Ape, they're a family friend, and I didn't want them to get backlash from all of
Mm-hmm.
this, and get drugged through the mud because of it. And so I kind of gave him a heads up first thing Monday morning when I got word of everything. And yeah, he sent her or he sent him a message letting him know that they were being dropped, etc. And no response at all.
Another great name for a company, so shout out to them. Do you predict that
Very good.
Jamie will come back and keep competing, or do you think that either he
Ooh.
will no longer or that he will be banned?
That's actually a really good question. I personally I don't think Jamie will come back just because of the fact that how big this got and how much attention it has received. And it would be like a dog walking back with its tail between its legs almost at this point. And the other thing is, I'm curious to see what one of the other federations is going to do. Strongman Corporation. They are the host organization for a competition, the Arnold Pro Am, and
Mm.
that is in Columbus, Ohio, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Expo. And it's a pro am, so you have to qualify by either having a pro card or qualify at a pro slash amateur competition. And the winner for the women and the men gets to go to the main stage the following year, and that's where there's a lot of prize money. And currently, Strongman Corporation's policy is very lackluster. It basically allows transgender athletes to compete with women as long as their testosterone is below a certain level. And I was not aware of that because, well, I'm not transgender and I've never needed to look into it per se for myself. So I didn't know it. And so when I went and looked at it over the last couple weeks, I read it and I was just appalled, to be frank. I was not aware that was acceptable and that was their policy. And so I am working on contacting the organization president and trying to get talking with him. I've had difficult time reaching him. He's not responded back at all to me in the past for other situations as well either. But I'm hoping that we can get somewhere with that. Supposedly they came out with a statement basically saying that they're aware of it and that they're going to take some time, work with attorneys, and come up with a new policy.
Hmm.
And that was before Thanksgiving. And so give us time over Thanksgiving with our families and come up to some kind of uh resolution. And part of me is worried that maybe they'll just try to sweep it under the rug. I really hope that's not the case because at least one person will not be quiet about it. And that's myself. So, um, but I am going to be on top of that because that is a really big organization here in the United States and in other countries. And it's overall a really great organization with great people, great competition, really high standards of judging and stuff like that. So I really hope that they don't let it just fall to the wayside.
Hmm. Hopefully Arnold steps in. It'll be when is that competition happening?
So the Arnold Pro Amateur will be in March, the 5th through the 8th, I
Okay.
believe. It's a 3-day competition. The main stage is 2 days and then the amateur side is 2 days, but they split them up so that they're not all competing at once.
Jennifer, is there anything else you'd like to say on this topic before we let everyone go? Anything that we should look forward to from you, or just in general your State of the Union address on this topic?
I didn't mean to sound like such a bummer saying, it's not going to be over for a long time, but I think we have the wind against our backs. I mean, I think it's really encouraging that once this Jamie person was identified as male, the organization swiftly took his championship away and gave it to Andrea. So
Absolutely.
there's positive signs. I think the Supreme Court cases everybody needs to really pay attention to. I think the IOC is saying they are going to do the right thing. I don't think they've said women's sports are for women, but they haven't quite said they're going to implement sex testing across the board. I don't believe. So I'm anxiously waiting to hear that. I think if the IOC does that, even though IOC doesn't sit technically above all these other sports, I mean, that's the leading sports governance body in the world. It's the International Olympic Committee. And so that sends a strong signal. And I think other sports governing bodies will take heed. And I think people are just tired of these guys taking advantage of women. And I think people are less afraid to push back now. So it's all good. We're getting there, but we have a ways to go. We have to keep fighting.
No, I understand why you said that because you don't want
Yeah.
people to get complacent. And I
Right.
do get concerned when I read new policies from places. I think it was the Lawn Tennis Association, whichever governs tennis in England, and then the LPGA Tour. They say these things in their new policies where they say any person who was born male or went through or assigned male at birth or went through
A
male
man.
puberty. Yeah, they won't just outright say
A
it for some
man.
reason. They tiptoe around it, so that gets confusing as to why they just like we were saying off the top. they try to be so nice about it when it's not given. The grace is not given in the other direction. So I want to thank you
No.
both for coming on again. Of course, we will look out for the Arnold event that's going to happen and these Supreme Court cases. We thank you, Morgan, for being a woman who's willing to speak up, even though there will be people
Yeah.
who say you are a bigot, a bijot, whatever else, a racist for some reason. As they said
Yeah.
in the soccer example you came
I
up,
called her racist.
they called her racist for some to say that somebody's a guy. They called her racist, and it was the two Africans that they, whether they're a guy or not, their testosterone levels were too high. I don't know.
They're men. They're men.
They won't release
Oh no.
the testing. It's okay, Morgan. We're gonna let it go anyways. We'll just blame the internet and the snowstorms. I'm under snow. I'm guessing, Jennifer, where do you think she was from? Michigan or Wisconsin?
I have no idea. Wisconsin.
I'm saying with the accent, Morgan, is it Michigan or Wisconsin you're from?
She didn't hear you. Where are you from, Morgan?
She's frozen in time. We'll never know.
Terrible. I'm sorry, my connection's really bad. I don't understand what's going on.
That's okay.
We were just wondering where
What
you're
was the
from.
question? I'm sorry, my
Where are
connection
you-
is. I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting at home.
Where are you from?
I'm from
Where do you go?
Iowa.
Damn
Oh,
it.
you
I
got
went
it
with
wrong.
Michigan or Wisconsin.
I live in.
We're never
Yeah, I live
gonna
in
know.
Northeast Iowa for sure.
Okay. I don't know if that's going to be an Iowa
Come
State
on,
fan or
phone.
not. It's okay, Morgan. We're letting you go.
Wrap it up.
Everybody, thanks for watching. Subscribe now. Thanks for the
Can you see me
Spotify
now?
and Apple. We could see you the whole time. I'm just going to stop it.